the ghost franchise of blood and power. Subscribe, like, and comment if you dare follow this story, because in the world of cartel empires, silence is usually followed by death. The night air over Guadalajara was thick with heat, dust, and fear. Welcome to this story. A story of power, money, betrayal, and a criminal empire built not like a traditional cartel, but like a business franchise spreading like poison through Mexico and beyond. Because tonight, everything begins with a gunshot echoing across an abandoned warehouse district on the outskirts of Guadalajara, Mexico. 3 shots. Then silence. Then running footsteps. A man was sprinting through darkness, his breath sharp and broken, his shoes splashing through puddles left by earlier rain. Behind him, red and blue police lights cut through the night like blades slicing flesh. The man wasn't just a suspect. He was a courier. And inside the black duffel bag he carried was something that could unravel one of the most powerful criminal networks in modern cartel history. The man's name was not important to the police chasing him. What mattered was who he worked for. The Jalisco-based criminal organization known for its ruthless efficiency, global drug pipelines, and terrifying violence. The organization built under the control of a man who was known only by one name inside criminal circles, El Mencho. The chase ended in a narrow alley where broken streetlights flickered like dying hearts. The man tripped. The bag slid across wet concrete. Police officers shouted commands in Spanish and English, their voices mixing with the sound of distant traffic and barking dogs. He didn't resist. Because he knew something they didn't. The bag was already empty. Or at least, it was supposed to be. Meanwhile, 20 kilometers away, in a safe house hidden behind a bakery that sold sweet bread to unsuspecting customers, a woman sat staring at surveillance monitors. Her name was Detective Laura Mendoza. She had been tracking cartel financial movements for nearly 6 years. And tonight, she had found something impossible. On her screen were hundreds of small financial transactions moving through shell companies, cryptocurrency wallets, and local businesses across Mexico, Spain, and parts of the United States. The pattern wasn't random. It was structured. Like a business expansion model. Like a corporation. Not like a traditional drug cartel. She whispered to herself, "Franchise warfare." That was the phrase investigators had started using. Because unlike old cartel models that centralized power in one violent hierarchy, this organization operated differently. Instead of controlling every street dealer directly, they sold territory. Control was distributed. Local gang leaders paid for the right to operate under their protection. They received drugs, weapons, and intelligence in return. Failure to pay royalties? Simple. Efficient. Corporate-level criminal innovation. And that was why the possible death or disappearance of El Mencho had sparked chaos across intelligence agencies worldwide. Because no one knew if the franchise model would collapse without him. Or if it would grow stronger. Back at the police station, the courier was being interrogated. Sweat ran down his face as officers placed photographs on the table. One photo showed a luxury villa hidden deep in the mountains. Another showed burned vehicles. Another showed bodies found along highways with identical execution signatures, hands tied, single shot to the head, messages carved into wooden signs placed beside the corpses. The interrogator leaned forward. "Tell us about the shipments." The courier shook his head. "I don't move shipments." "You move information," the officer said. "And information is worth more than cocaine in their business model." The courier finally spoke. "They are not waiting for El Mencho to die." Silence filled the room. "They are waiting to see who replaces him." That was when things became darker. Because succession inside cartel organizations usually meant blood wars. But the Jalisco organization had something different. They didn't appoint successors through violence alone. They tested loyalty. Like corporate promotions inside a criminal corporation. That same night, far south of Guadalajara, a convoy of black SUVs traveled through mountainous roads. Inside one of the vehicles sat a young man in his late 20s. His name was Alejandro Cruz. He was not a cartel boss. Not yet. But intelligence agencies believed he was being groomed as part of the next leadership generation. Alejandro watched the darkness outside the window. He had joined the organization after his brother was killed by rival cartel members years earlier. The cartel offered revenge, protection, and something else: opportunity. He remembered the recruitment conversation like it was yesterday. No one becomes powerful by fighting alone, the recruiter had told him. Power is built by controlling supply chains. That was the philosophy of the franchise cartel model. Control logistics, not just violence. Control transport routes, not just cities. Control money movement, not just territory. But tonight, something was wrong. Alejandro's phone buzzed. One message. No name attached. Just coordinates. And a single sentence. "They know you are talking to investigators." His heart dropped. Because he had been secretly cooperating with law enforcement. He was supposed to be a double agent. Or at least, that was what he thought. The convoy stopped suddenly on the mountain road. The driver turned. "We have a problem," he said. Ahead of them, another set of headlights appeared. Not police. Something worse. Rival cartel enforcers. Shots rang out before anyone could react. Bullets shattered windshield glass. Alejandro ducked as chaos exploded inside the vehicle. The convoy split apart, tires screeching, engines roaring, men shouting orders. The franchise war was no longer theoretical. It had begun. Back in Guadalajara, Detective Mendoza received an encrypted message. It contained a single video file. She hesitated before opening it. The video showed a meeting inside an underground bunker. Men in expensive suits were seated around a table, talking about market expansion, talking about replacing leadership structures, talking about something terrifying. If El Mencho was dead, the organization wouldn't collapse. It would restructure, like a corporation after the death of its CEO. But then the camera in the video panned slowly toward the far end of the table, where a man sat in shadow. He spoke only one sentence. "Mexico is not our only market anymore." The video ended. Mendoza felt cold, because she realized something worse than cartel collapse. If the franchise model survived, the organization could become global. And then, something clicked in her mind. She opened a classified intelligence file. And what she found made her stand up from her chair. Because El Mencho's death might not have been the end of the empire. It might have been the beginning of something bigger. Something far more dangerous than any single kingpin. But when she scrolled further down the file, she found a report marked with a red warning label. Possible successor network already operational. And inside that report was a name. Alejandro Cruz. But what she didn't know was that Alejandro was already missing. Because as the gunfire died down on the mountain road, one of the black SUVs was found abandoned. Doors open. Engines still running. Blood on the seats. But no bodies. And that's when investigators found something inside the glove compartment. A business card. With only one word printed on it. Expansion. And that was when Detective Mendoza realized. They weren't hunting a cartel. They were hunting a criminal corporation preparing for global domination. But what she didn't know was that someone inside her own investigation team was already working for them. And the next I would reveal how deep the betrayal really went. If you think it was intense, you are not ready for what comes next. Hit like, subscribe, and stay tuned, because the hunt has only just begun. The Empire strikes back from shadows. Before we continue, if you are enjoying this story, smash that like button, subscribe, and drop a comment telling me what you think will happen next. Because in stories like this, survival often depends on who is watching and who is talking. The war had already begun. But wars inside criminal empires were rarely fought with open battles. They were fought with silence. With missing people. With corrupted evidence. And with money moving through invisible digital rivers across continents. This came 48 hours after the mountain ambush. 4 police officers assigned to Detective Mendoza's investigations suddenly resigned. No explanation. No warning. Just disappearance from the investigation system. That alone was suspicious. But what truly triggered fear inside law enforcement circles was what happened next. One of the officers was found dead inside his apartment. No signs of forced entry. No struggle. Just a single gunshot wound. And beside his body was a note. written in Spanish. Some secrets are worth more than lives. This was the moment Detective Mendoza realized the cartel wasn't just eliminating enemies. They were sending messages. Public psychological warfare. Because fear is cheaper than bullets when you want to control territory. Pay attention here. If you are still watching this story, I need you to think about this question right now. What is scarier? A cartel that kills its enemies? Or a cartel that can disappear people without anyone noticing? Drop your answer in the comments right now, because your opinion matters in this story. And trust me, you are going to want to stay until the end of this chapter. Because what happened next changed everything. Meanwhile, intelligence agencies across the United States and Europe were tracing money transfers linked to cartel-controlled businesses. The pattern was shocking. The organization was buying legitimate companies, shipping companies, food distribution networks, construction firms, even small technology startups, not for profit, but for infrastructure control. Because in modern organized crime, controlling supply chains is more powerful than controlling street territory. One intelligence analyst compared it to corporate monopolies. Except this monopoly was enforced with automatic weapons. Back in Mexico, Alejandro Cruz was alive. Barely. He woke up inside a dimly lit safe room somewhere in the mountains. His wrists were tied loosely, which was unusual, because if they wanted him dead, he would already be dead. A man walked into the room. Well-dressed. Calm voice. No visible weapons. I was told you were smart, the man said. Alejandro stayed quiet. The man continued. You were supposed to die on that mountain road. But someone inside your convoy warned you. Alejandro's heart raced. Because that meant one terrifying thing. They knew he was cooperating with law enforcement. The man leaned closer. Here is your choice, he said. You can continue working for them and disappear like the others. Or you can help us build the next generation of this organization. Alejandro swallowed hard, because he realized something terrifying. The cartel wasn't angry about betrayal. They were testing loyalty, like a business promotion interview from hell. If you are watching this right now, I want you to hit the subscribe button if you think Alejandro will betray the cartel. Because this story is about to get darker. And trust me, you will not see the final twist coming. Back in Guadalajara, Detective Mendoza discovered something far worse. The cartel had not only infiltrated businesses. They had infiltrated law enforcement payroll systems. Several officers were receiving monthly payments disguised as consulting fees from fake security companies. The payments were small, but consistent. Enough to buy silence. Not loyalty. Silence. And that was the genius of the franchise model. You didn't need to control everyone. Just enough people to keep information from spreading. Then came the breaking point. A courier was arrested carrying encrypted data drives. Inside those drives were maps. Not of drug routes, but of future expansion zones. The cartel had plans for a new distribution routes into Europe through port cities, their expansion into synthetic drug markets, recruitment networks inside prisons across multiple countries. One file was labeled globalization. And that is when Mendoza realized something terrifying. El Mencho's death might not matter, because the organization was already operating like a decentralized criminal corporation, like modern tech companies, but built on violence. If you are still here, I need you to do 3 things right now. Like this video. Subscribe if you want to know what next, because it gets even more dangerous. And comment below. Do you think global law enforcement can actually stop an empire built on fear, money, and franchise-style crime? Because this will reveal the truth about who is really controlling this network, and who is about to be sacrificed next. And trust me, you are not ready for what happens next. The empire's final secret. If you've made it this far, you already know this story isn't just about crime. It's about power, survival, and who really controls the shadows. So right now, like, subscribe, and comment your theory about how this story will end, because the final truth is about to be revealed. The war was no longer about cartels. It was about control of the future. And the future was already being negotiated in silence. The final confrontation began in an unexpected place. Not in Mexico. Not in the United States. But inside a corporate conference room in Madrid, Spain. Inside sat business executives, investors, and legal representatives from several international companies. But hidden inside the meeting was something far more dangerous. Members of the cartel's financial network. They were discussing something terrifying. Post-El Mencho succession strategy. Because intelligence agencies had finally confirmed something shocking. El Mencho was not dead. He was alive. But he was not leading the organization publicly anymore. He was operating like a hidden chairman. Like a ghost CEO controlling operations through encrypted communication networks. Listen closely. If you are still watching this, I want you to think about this question. What is more powerful? A cartel boss who rules through fear, or a cartel boss who disappears and rules through invisible money networks? If you think the second one is scarier, smash the like button and subscribe right now, because the truth is about to get darker. Back in Mexico, Detective Mendoza had finally found the missing link. Alejandro Cruz was not missing. He had switched sides. But not in the way she expected. He had become what intelligence agencies call a controlled insider asset. Which meant he was feeding information to both sides. Law enforcement. And the cartel. Because survival inside that world is rarely about loyalty. It is about balancing death threats from every direction. The climax of the investigation came when Mendoza received another encrypted video. This one was different. It showed a large underground bunker meeting. Dozens of cartel leaders were present. But the camera slowly focused on one empty chair at the center of the room. The chair reserved for El Mencho. Then a voice came through a speaker system. Controlled. I know the government is listening. Silence in the video. Then the voice continued. You cannot destroy this organization. Because it is no longer an organization. It is an economy. That was the final evolution of the franchise model. Crime had turned into a parallel financial system. Independent cells. Independent territories. Shared resources. Shared protection. Like multinational corporations. But enforced through violence. If you are still watching, I want you to comment right now. Do you think modern crime organizations are becoming more like corporations than traditional criminal gangs? Your opinion matters because this story is based on real intelligence patterns used in modern investigations. And trust me, the ending is shocking. Stay with me. The final showdown happened 1 week later. Law enforcement coordinated simultaneous raids across 5 cities. Mexico, United States, Colombia, and one location that shocked everyone. A luxury private estate hidden in the mountains of Jalisco. Inside that estate was the rumored command center of the franchise network. When tactical teams entered, they found something unexpected. No weapons. No drugs. Only computers. Servers. Financial trading dashboards. And one large screen showing global maps of shipping routes. But El Mencho was not there. Instead, they found another message. Written in English this time. You are fighting an old war. That was when Mendoza realized the truth. They were not trying to defeat a cartel. They were trying to defeat a global shadow business model that could outlive any single leader. If this story shocked you, hit subscribe right now because I am about to reveal the biggest twist in this entire case. Because here is what investigators discovered next. Alejandro Cruz was found dead 3 days later. Official reports said suicide. But Mendoza knew better. Because the position of the body suggested execution-style staging. Someone wanted it to look like betrayal punishment. Not political elimination. Control messaging. Then came the final revelation. The intelligence file labeled Operation Ghost Market. Inside were projections showing something terrifying. If the franchise model continued growing, if the organization could operate in over 30 countries within 5 years, revenue streams would rival some legitimate multinational corporations. Traditional law enforcement models would struggle to keep up. Because crime was no longer just about drugs. It was about economic ecosystems. The final scene of the story happened months later. Detective Mendoza received one last anonymous message. Just 2 words. Thank you. She knew who sent it. And she also knew what it meant. Someone inside the organization wanted her to know that she had become part of the history of this war. Not as a winner, but as a witness. The camera of this story would end on a dark street in Guadalajara. People walking, cars passing, normal life continuing. Because that is the most terrifying truth of all. Criminal empires do not always collapse with explosions and arrests. Sometimes they just evolve and survive. And somewhere, in the shadows, new leaders are always being trained. If you enjoyed this story, you know what to do. Like this video. Subscribe to this channel if you want more real crime stories like this. And comment below. Do you think modern criminal empires will ever be completely defeated? Because if you think this story was intense, you are not ready for the next one. Stay safe, stay curious, and I will see you in the next investigation.